Welcome back to Girl Take the Lead, the podcast where we reimagine leadership, challenge the status quo, and share the real, raw, and meaningful conversations that help us break cycles, find our voice, and lead with intention. And I'm your host, Canny. If you're listening at a moment when the world feels heavy, tense, or uncertain, when holding it all together feels like it's kind of a labor, you're not alone. And this conversation is arriving at exactly the right time. Today's episode isn't about escaping reality or making light of what's hard. It's about humor as a way into reality, as power, as resistance, and as repair. I'm so pleased to welcome Lynn Harris, a culture shifting producer, award winning journalist, and author whose work sits at the intersection of humor, leadership, and social change. Lynn is the founder and CEO of Gold Comedy, a comedy school, professional network, and content studio where women and non binary folks build comedy careers or creative side hustles, find community, and make funny stuff with purpose. From Capitol Hill to NASCAR, Lynn has spent decades shaping conversations and challenging systems, proving that comedy isn't just entertainment, it's a leadership skill, a cultural lever, and sometimes a survival strategy. In this conversation, Lynn reframes humor as something far more meaningful than a punchline. She shares why humor builds trust, while the ability to read the room is really empathy in action, and why humor is available to everyone, even if you've spent years saying, I'm not funny. This is a thoughtful, funny, and grounding conversation, one that invites you to see humor not as distraction, but as a resource. Let's jump in. Here you go. We are so excited to have you with us, Lynn. We're going to have, if our listeners and viewers don't laugh at some point, maybe we didn't do our job.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and we will make sure to do that job today.
Great. So let's start, if you would, to introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. My name is Lynn Harris, and most recently, currently, my thing for the past quite a few years has been that I am the founder of Gold Comedy, which is the comedy school and professional network and content studio where women and non-binary folks and others build their comedy careers or creative side hustles, join a powerful community, and make funny stuff. And I did that. I founded Gold because I have, for many, since as long as I can remember, cared equally, perhaps, about both comedy and social change. And the great news is that you can do them both at the same time. So that's what I've been endeavoring to do since I was, itty bitty. And I've done many things along the way, but that's been the through line, and that's what got me here now.
So, where do you see the relationship between leadership and humor?
Between leadership and humor? Yeah, that's a great question. I think just to pull back a little bit, I think a lot of times, and people are not wrong, but people think of humor and comedy as kind of a distraction from reality or a break from reality or a a distraction or a break, and that is true, and we could use that, and we that's why they call laughter the best medicine. I would say it's probably like good medicine tied with like the polio vaccine, but it's, we know that it's good medicine. But there are thousands of studies that also associate humor, and we can talk about what we mean when we say humor, but humor with a lot of serious things and a lot of things that actually are entwined with reality, or in fact improve and adjust and change reality. um, in other words, comedy doesn't just take us out of it, it actually puts us into it and helps us create the reality that we want. And when it comes to leadership, there are all sorts of studies, again, that associate humor, again, we can define that in a second, but with leadership, because, and this may not be the reasons that you would expect, but because humor, someone with a sense of humor is seen as trustworthy.
Mm-hmm.
And we can talk about why. They're seen as confident. We can talk about why. And they're seen as, and they also are able to make connections with others.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of those are, those are just some examples of why humor is associated with leadership in all of these studies.
Yeah.
And that might be surprising because you might think of the funny person in the room as like the joker, not the leader. But where the joker and the leader come together is exactly that. And that's what, when we're talking about humor here, we're not only talking about the person who kind of distracts and delights, which is welcome.
Yeah.
But we're also talking about a person who is really tuned into the vibe of the room or of a group or of a moment. In other words, who can read the room,
Yeah.
who and who can kind of deliver thoughtfully, drop some wisecracks that are appropriate to the moment. And that takes some skill.
Yeah.
And what you're doing when you do that is, or anyone telling a joke, or anyone, let's to put a fine point on it, anyone getting a joke, when everyone gets the same joke, it means they're connected. Because if you think about it, not everyone's going to get the same joke. It may depend on context. It may depend on knowledge. It may depend on experience. It may depend on where you live. Who knows, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um, and so when people all get the same joke, it means by definition that they have some sort of connection.
And
So a good
shared view, right? And
and
shared,
so a good leader, for better or for worse, right?
right.
There's also people who bond over mean jokes, but it's still the same effect, for better and for worse. Um, And so a good leader is someone who is able to it's not the only sign of a good leader, but the connection between leadership and humor is that a leader with a sense of humor is able to deploy humor, to be themselves, to kind of be their authentic self, if that's who they are, but then to pick and choose, to read the room, to think about when is humor going to help in this moment? When is humor
Mm-hmm.
going to make us relax? When is humor going to make us think? And deploy it in those ways. And that's how it builds, not just makes you like that person and enjoy being around that person, but it also builds trust because you sense that they know what to do in a given situation and they know how to bring people together.
Yeah. When you say, read the room, I think that implies a certain amount of empathy or,
Yes,
right?
for
That they're
sure.
that they're skilled at picking up the vibes of the room, whether it's fear or whether it's and helping us look at it so it's not so scary.
Yes. And that's really true. And that goes back to what I was saying about how, a leader with a sense of humor is not necessarily like a wacky jokester with a lampshade on their head. Often in those cases, or who's like knock knock, like it's not just about like jokety jokety joke, hey, like that's not it at all. It can often, finding the humor in a moment isn't like making a deliberately crafted joke. It's about saying what's so.
Yeah.
Like if the thing that everyone's scared to say, even if it's dumb and small, like if everyone's kind of nervous and they're afraid to say it's freezing in the room, like a leader is the one who's like, who needs mittens, which is not like a big joke. It's not like a big, hey, look at me kind of, putting on a show. It's just saying what's so that everyone can relax.
Yeah. They have that
Saying what
shared
everyone's
reality.
thinking, but for whatever reason, for whatever their place in the hierarchy or not knowing other people, just like saying what's so like, this is a weird building, or like, it doesn't have to be like a masterfully created setup and punchline.
Yeah.
Just like, who else needs more coffee? I don't know, just anything like that. There's just kind of an observation that opens up that like lets people just exhale.
So do you think humor is available to everyone, or some of the common sense might be, oh, I'm not funny?
Oh, people say that all the time,
Yeah.
and I do think it's available to everyone because, as I like to say, what's the expression? The expression is having a sense of humor. It's just a sense. Oh, it's not a grasp. It's not a PhD of humor. It's a sense. And so being able, it might just mean that you might not be the quickest with a joke, but you can at least appreciate and be part of what's going on.
Yeah.
Or it might mean that, like, who cares if you're not quick with a joke? You would do other kinds of jokes, or your humor is like the way you roll your eyes, or it could be anything. It could be anything. There's no one way that you don't have to be like more confident. You don't have to be less shy. The only thing you have to do, if you decide that you want to really hone this, is take a class or something. Like, it's just to learn, and it doesn't mean that you can't. Um, it just means that you have to learn the mechanics. Just like not everyone can play piano until they take lessons, and someone tells them, this is how you read the notes, and this is how the notes match the keys, and you do need to do that. But it's just like, and some people are going to wind up being concert pianists, and some people are going to wind up enjoying it as amateurs, and some people are just going to, I don't know, be able to like plink along with their kid. I don't know. But
Yeah.
like the enjoyment of it is available to everyone.
Yeah.
And
It, it
even the creation at whatever level is appropriate to you or comfortable to you, or like fun for you or valuable to you, it's available to everyone.
so the creation brings to mind for me creativity, because I think when it comes to humor, um, you do have to kind of be willing to go be vulnerable, be in an area that a lot of people don't go to comfortably. The creativity involved with that and the authenticity of
Yeah,
stepping out, I think takes courage and being brave.
it does. It does. And if we're talking, specifically about stand up, and just to say for
Yeah.
context, there's so many, if you're drawn to humor but you're not sure you want to be on stage, I can give you a list of jobs, that you that you can have that don't involve standing on stage alone with a microphone and telling jokes.
Uh-huh.
So first of all, we've taken care of that excuse, right? That's not your only option. Um, and second of all, it does take. Yes, it does take some bravery, but also want to suggest that you don't have to all of a sudden be a super brave person to do it. In other words, I don't want to like reinforce any perceived barriers, because um, you don't have to say anything you don't want to say. And by the time when you see comedians who are making themselves vulnerable, who are or just making them, self-deprecation even
Yeah.
is not so hard. We're all pretty good at that, right?
Yeah.
um you don't really it's you're in control. You don't have to say anything. You don't have It's not a confessional, it's not your journal. um you're completely in control of the choices you're making about what you want to say and what you don't, and how you want to say it, and what framing you want. And in fact, you have to be, because otherwise the audience will be uncomfortable, you know
Right.
um and so it's still really up to you. If So there is a process that involves some vulnerability, but when you're on stage, um uh there's a degree to which you need to communicate to the audience that you're not,
Mm.
that like, because but again, that's not so hard because you plan this. Like, no one told you, well, you can't go on stage without talking about that really hard thing from your childhood. Like, you don't
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah.
um and you can do whatever you want. And you're right that audiences can probably, well, as you get better as a comic, let's put it this way, as you get better, you do get more, as you get, let's say, as you have more, as you just log more hours, right? As
Mm-hmm.
you just put in all the reps, you got to put in all the reps just like you do with any job. You do become more comfortable in sensing, in being able to just kind of talk about yourself and sense where the lines are and sense what you're comfortable with, and being very, and you, it is easier for you to be kind of immediately authentic, and it's more common for comics earlier in their careers to do more, put things a little bit more of a distance and do things that are more observational,
Yeah.
because it's safer. But I think the real opportunity is there, and people take it, which is as they get more comfortable, they uh, they wind up figuring out. Well, it's kind of a circular thing, right? As they get more comfortable, they get more comfortable. In other words, as they get more comfortable, they are more able to take risks, um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, not mind failing, which everyone does all the time. So it's good for building your, for thickening your skin.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it doesn't, I just want to kind of, everything I say is said with the idea of like, don't be scared to try this.
Yeah.
So, whatever this is, right? Even just take a class, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so I don't want people to think that they like have to be vulnerable, you know, in order, even if they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, I don't want people to think that like they have to, like the first moment they step on stage, they somehow have to already know how to be completely authentic and vulnerable and in control and all that stuff. You don't. You're going to learn it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So you started by talking a little bit about social change. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of comics, like a Red Fox or, classic comics, man,
Red Fox.
they, woo,
I'm having a moment of Red Fox. I love Red Fox. Appreciate the reference.
he had, I mean, a way of almost taking a knife and cutting you in your heart, but it was relaxed and it felt okay. You would laugh at it. But he was
Yeah.
about social justice. And so many others were too, don't you think?
Um, yeah, and to me, it, you know, there's sort of two different things going on, or two different ways of leveraging comedy. Not, there's more than two. There's more than two. But for right now, of leveraging comedy for social change. One of them is, you know, talking about the issues, you know, that are of concern to you, right? Um, Reframing them. You poking fun, reframing issues to show how ridiculous something is, or how absurd or horrifying something is,
Yeah,
and letting us all feel that we're not crazy. You know, that like,
right.
and bringing people together, sure, and motivating people, all those things. But then it's also true that since, despite incredible change, which I'm happy to talk about, it's still true that, let's say, stand up in particular and also late night are still, despite incredible change, which I do not want to minimize, those these this industry is the industry is still dominated, by straight white dudes. I mean, it just is. Just
Mhm.
lingering biases, and whether deliberate or careless, um, are still there. There are still. I did stand up throughout the '90s, and it was normal to be the only woman on a lineup. It's
Mhm.
2005, 2005, 2025. Excuse me, 2025. It still happens.
Yeah.
So my point is, it still happens a lot. My point is, you can also contribute to social change if by just showing up, by just being
Mhm.
the one on stage. Not only because it, you know, promotes this vision of diversity and inclusion, of course, but also because comedy, you know, if you're watching someone tell jokes, who has the power in the room? They do.
Yeah.
And if you're watching someone who doesn't look like you, or who you're not seeing used to seeing be in charge, then even the experience of watching them tell jokes can contribute to, mindset shifts.
Mhm.
That, oh, right, like that, you know, I'm a person who doesn't look like me is in charge right now, or has a completely different background from me or completely different life experience, is in charge right now, and I am just their, you know, they're my leader and I'm their follower, and that is like that's a pretty powerful situation to be in. I mean,
Right.
even my company is our community and our students and our whole network is mostly women, non-binary folks, trans folks, etc. But there are definitely a couple of wonderful straight dudes, straight white dudes milling about, and it's also which is great because our community is not designed for them, which I say with love because the
Mhm.
rest of the world was not designed for us. Comedy was not
Mhm.
like comedy as we know it and as we all came up in it and as it still is now is not designed for me, I say, pointing to me, right?
Mhm.
Still isn't.
Mhm.
So gold comedy was not designed for straight white dudes. They're
Mhm.
welcome, but it wasn't designed for them. So the experience, their experience of just being the only guy in the room, uh, having to listen to a woman teacher, that's kind of spine building also,
Yeah.
so like that's an individual example, but think of that writ large. So the point is, you could get on stage and tell jokes about you know anything totally non-political stuff and still depending on who you are and what you bring contribute to change just by showing up.
Yeah. I think sometimes for me, when I find myself laughing, it's usually because um, I've identified completely with the comic. Like if they're talking about their mother or they're talking about their Hispanic heritage or what it was like, I just go right there with them and I'm immediately pulled in. Is that a key element of being funny? Pulling the audience in?
Yes, I think it's a key element of communicating and connecting. It's a key element of storytelling. It's a key element of why people like certain TV shows. It's a key element of, yes, certainly
Mhm.
stand up. And what's kind of magical about it is, of course, as you said, you might relate more directly to, a Latin comic, or I might relate more directly to an Ashkenazi Jewish comic, whatever it is, right? Or just a woman, whatever it is, right? Someone from Massachusetts. I'm going to get those jokes. But what's magic about it is kind of this weird paradox where, and the same is true in storytelling, the more specific you are, the more relatable you are to more people. And it's weird,
Ah,
but it's true. And that's why, huge audiences of all types of people love, well, people who don't relate to like white people love white comics, right?
mhm.
And people who weren't raised Asian love Ali Wong. People who were like, it's just, and it's because it's not just because they're good comedians, which they are in these cases. But what's good about them is they're able to craft these jokes and material and have a point of view that is extremely particular to themselves. They are writing jokes that nobody else could write. But what those jokes are evoking is something primal. So
Mm,
so for example, one of my favorite current comics is Bob the Drag Queen. Okay.
mhm.
Here are the things we have in common. Nothing. Okay. Like I'm 5'1", he's 6'5". Okay. I am white on both sides of my family. He is black. He is a drag queen. I am not. He has a whole bunch of siblings. I think I can't remember, but I don't. Like the one thing we have in common is we both recently lost our mothers, which is a whole separate, which is actually, I say that actually in the context of comedy, not tragedy, which I can explain. But like, I've seen his stand up is incredible. And like technically, we both love heels, I guess, but like the stuff that he talks about is so specific to his own life, which is
Mhm.
not a life I have lived, but it's so profound that it evokes fear, like, I don't know, it's the themes, right? It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
wanting to be loved,
Mhm.
fear, wanting to, desire for connection,
Mhm.
feeling left out, like all, like who can't relate to that stuff?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the magic of the best comics, and what everyone should aspire to is that sort of paradoxical balance.
Yeah. So you mentioned one of the comics that you really that appeals to you. Who else is out there that you would go, okay, yo, you really got to check this one out because they're you wouldn't I wouldn't normally, and who would you say should be on my list?
So Bob the Drag Queen,
Yeah,
and Cameron Esposito,
you're right.
famous comics, but not like the ones that everybody knows. So like these are not obscure comics as well. These are very successful comics. But
Hmm.
um, Maria Bamford,
Hmm.
Naomi Ekperigin,
Okay.
um, those are among I have tons more, but those are like some
Yeah.
of my current favorites who are just so original. And then although everyone I just named is super different from one another, but they're each of them is so original and so such a delight. Like I don't, I do this for a living. I don't perform much, but like I don't see any of their jokes coming. I could not possibly, recreate their personas. They are so each of them is just a what's the word I'm looking for? Like a well, yes, a national treasure, but like, what's the word? Not like I can't think of the expression. It's like broke the mold, but it's not that. Like
Yeah.
each of them is absolutely you can't imitate any of them. And but at the same time, they're all even though they're all like wacko in their own ways, they're all completely relatable.
Yeah.
Um, so those are some of my faves currently.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Here, I mean, today we're talking, you mentioned the word original, and so hard to be original. And here you're pointing to examples of originality.
Yeah, I think it is hard to be original. Oh, also Michelle Buteau. Love Michelle Buteau. Her show is amazing. We used to just see her all around in New York City, and now we're like, she's so famous. It's so much fun. Carrie Coddett also. She's one to watch. Carrie Coddett. You'll be like, oh my god, you talked about her, and now she's so famous. It's true. Carrie Coddett. Anyway, is it original or is it that? And this is, I said the industry is both amazing and terrible at the same time right now.
Yeah.
Is it original or is it that more more a more diverse array of people has more access to more platforms, so we are now seeing
Oh,
um, a more diverse array of people, and so it feels original because we're like, well, that's refreshing. They're
yeah.
not all
Yeah.
the same dude. So it's probably both, but I do think that originality is rewarded now. I think that which is great, but I also think that we have a nice a flood of originality coming through at the same time.
Well, that's terrific. And I would think that your efforts are helping that diversity show up because our population is more diverse
Yes,
too.
and that's what, yes, it sure is, and that is what I'm trying to contribute to. And I would include in we talked about this before, but I would include in my in diversity in this case uh, women over 50.
Yeah.
Like
Leanne is like hot right now, right?
yeah,
Leanne's got her show and everything.
exactly. And like we never saw ourselves on TV. I mean, it was either the Brady Bunch or the Golden Girls. It was
Mhm.
like, is there anyone in between? And of course I'm going way back, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do.
And so, like for example, at Gold Comedy, one of our premium classes that is just extra near and dear is about how to develop and pitch your idea, how to take any idea that you are kind of that's stuck in your head or on your heart or on notes in a drawer, and how to develop it into an industry standard, practice, polished pitch that you could actually literally then go take to a person in development, a festival, anything. And the reason I mentioned this one is that class happens to be extremely popular with women in their 40s and 50s and beyond. And that is
Interesting.
because and that is because, and as I was saying, that's contributing to like diversity and points of view, and that is because they might be women who have been very successful in their current career and are not going to leave it, whether or not it's related to entertainment. It may be, it may not be. Um, but who have this kind of built up, pent up um, creativity and will and drive to just see this one idea through, whether it's something about them or something that is, adjacent to them, just something. And we can name examples of Billy, who's, can I swear on your show? Because the name of her show has a swear in it. Okay. Because Billy wrote an amazing pilot called Batshit Debbie. And Batshit Debbie has now won a whole bunch of awards. And Billy got representation and has a celebrity attached to. And this is Billy, who is a comic, but also came from public health.
Yeah.
And she's a parent of teens. So, and Rocky, who actually has done different programming with us, is a grandmother. She's about 50. She's a grandmother in the South. She's a retired high school art teacher. She has grandchildren who she takes care of. She has a son with extra needs who she takes care of. And after retiring, she embarked on a whole new career of stand-up and sketch, and lives in North Carolina, but is bringing her an hour solo show to New York in the fall.
Whoa.
So that's also diversity. You see what I'm saying? So,
yes.
And Ryan Elizabeth Cunningham, who teaches the pitching class, says she developed her pitching class in a college setting, but she always says, I loved my college kids, love the college kids, love them, but I extra love these women who have lived a little, and who are, whether or not their projects are autobiographical, they're still bringing their lived experience and their wisdom and their no F's given attitude to creating amazing content. And so again, I think these are the opportunities for diversity and originality that I'm seeing and hopefully helping to create.
So can our listeners and viewers sign up for your classes or support your efforts? How can they do that?
What a great question, Yolanda. No, I'll try for this one. Oh no, I know how. Yes, of course. Thank you for asking. Anyone can visit goldcomedy.com to learn more about us. We also, it'll tell you about the different classes we have and the different opportunities. But the cool thing about how we work is that community comes first. So instead of paying class by class, you pay for an annual subscription, and people typically stay 2 or more years. Because once you start your subscription, then all the classes that are included. And so you wind up kind of forging your own path among the classes that we have. Some people double down on stand-up and take our stand-up class over and over for the accountability and structure and meeting new people. Some people are like, I'm here to create my web series. And they take our web series class, and then they shoot it and they crew up with people from our network. We're able to, just through our network and our community, because you become part of it and you are known and you get to know others, then we're able to invest in you and be like, okay, I can introduce you to someone, or let's help you get this made. And through our individual people that we know, we have a huge network, or partner companies and organizations, let's help you do what you want to do for real. And so that's why the value is really in the kind of long-term commitment. Not to make it sound scary, but I mean that's the framing, as opposed to I'll try that one class, which of course you can also do. Because the cost of membership is pretty close to the cost of one class at some other place. So you could do that, but we really foreground the idea of really belonging, because that's what people are looking
community.
For. The class anywhere, but where do you belong? Where do you find your people? Where do you find, we were talking about people who get your jokes. Of course, our community is diverse, but it's made for you, Yolanda, your listeners. And even with the crazy diversity in our community, people are going to get you.
Yeah, no, I think having a community of support is just priceless. Definitely.
Yeah.
So here we are recording this in 2025, and it's going to post in 2026. Got any thoughts? I know when I mentioned,
just to be clear, when you see us on YouTube in 2025, we will look even younger than we do now. Just saying.
Exactly.
How it works.
But you said to me when I posed this question to you, you said, well, if we survive 2025 and we'll get into 2026, what else do you think we need to have for 2026? A good sense of humor and
Um,
what else?
yeah, a go bag, non-perishable snacks. Um,
Friends in other
a bigger
countries. I mean,
passport. Right, right.
right. People you can stay with.
Right. Trombone stings. Wah, wah, wah. Just take your trombone stings wherever you go because that's what it's going to look like. Um, yeah. I mean, the obvious answer is we need comedy. I mean, which, but
Yeah.
like, kind of we do. And again, it's not just because it's a distraction, which again, we welcome. And it's not, the point is, it's not only that, right?
Right.
Um, this is the caveat I'll say here is, there's a couple of caveats. People always talk about how comedy is subversive. Comedy like speaks truth to power and can sort of chip away at institutions, and that is all true. Like I'm not undermining that, but like,
Mhm.
did we also notice the comedy is run by white dudes? So like they're also the establishment. So
Mhm.
so we still have to change comedy from within, but we can also leverage comedy as all of us to yes, like catapult uh rocks over the moat into the castle. Yes. That's my extended Monty Python metaphor. But anyway, uh, but even the white dudes, as we now know, even the white dudes are not all powerful because look what just happened to Colbert, you know?
Right. Right.
So, so, what can I tell you? I think comedy helped get us through the pandemic. And
Mhm.
I mean that really concretely.
Mhm.
I remember just all of the insane creativity. Like I don't know if you remember this or saw this, but all the comedians who got together, the early pandemic comedians and comic actors who got together and recreated The Princess Bride scene by scene in their yards. It was the fun. I still lie awake thinking about
Yeah.
how funny that was, and God forbid we can't still find it on YouTube. Like it was like early 2020, 20 whatever, mid 2020, and they recreated every scene, and someone organized them. Like, okay, Julia Louis Dreyfus, you're doing this scene at your pool or whatever, and they all had like finger puppets and like weird costumes made of vacuum cleaners, and it wasn't just a distraction. It made me think humans are so cool.
Yeah.
It just like reminded me that like if you can do the Princess Bride with with some funny
Puppets.
hats in your backyard, it doesn't really mean you can overthrow the government, but it's something.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's something very powerful. Just the power of that creativity and energy to be like, sure, I'll do that.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
I love it.
collaboration evident. So there's something there that we need to keep, that we, I hope, still have bottled from the pandemic and other horrors, that I hope will,
Get us
again,
through.
and I keep saying this, it's not just a distraction. I think it's power. It's not a distraction from the thing. It is the thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, or it's like the car that we can drive through it.
Yeah.
So the armored car the Mad Max, the feminist one that we can drive through it. So
Love it.
I yeah, let's still, that's what I invite your listeners to think about, is like reframing humor and comedy as not an escape. I mean, as not only an escape,
Mhm.
but as something they can even harness in their own lives, probably more than you think, or perhaps more than you think, to power through this time.
Yeah.
Even just writing a
So,
funny sign for a protest. So, and we need that.
right. So, Lynn, what would you tell your 20 something self now?
He's not worth it.
I'm
I
with you on
seriously,
that.
more like I gotta say, not that I was that precocious, but that's a little bit more my teenage self.
Yeah.
But like, do not change yourself for, well, a dude or
Yeah.
anyone.
Yeah.
Do not change yourself. And frankly, that's the other thing. Segue. That's the other thing that I liked in the card that I noticed in your gift shop was the
Uh-huh.
one that said, "Be yourself. Your
Mhm.
everyone else will adjust
Yeah.
with something like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what that's true in like relationships. I mean, not it doesn't mean be selfish. It just means
Yeah.
speak up for yourself and be yourself and do not change for a guy. Oh, I know that's not what it said, but like,
I
and
love it.
especially don't be less than.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners had, again, this is a little bit more when I was a teenager, I suppose, but like that, that whole thing, like, she's a lot, yes, she is.
Mhm.
Too much? Okay, next.
Right.
Do not diminish your. My mother said, my mother was like that was her big thing. Like, do not make yourself smaller.
Hmm. Hmm.
Do
Did
not
she give
diminish
you,
yourself to fit somewhere.
when you were growing up, did she give you a stage to perform on and encourage you
Uh,
to follow
yeah,
your dream there?
I had costumes in the bar. No, I I was an only child, so that helped because so I didn't have to compete with anybody.
Yeah.
Uh, and I don't know if they. I think they like both my parents were academic in some way, and I think they probably would have preferred in some way that I had gotten some sort of advanced degree and been done something a little more quote unquote serious. But at the same time, I'm like, well, it's your fault because you shouldn't have shown me so much Carol Burnett. Oh, you should have just watched 60 Minutes, people.
Yeah.
So I mean, I was raised on Carol Burnett, Lucille Ball, The Jeffersons, Captain and
Yeah.
Tennille, all the variety shows with the old school humor, which I love, Monty Python, um, Laugh-In,
Uh-huh.
MASH.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Russians are coming, all the hilarious, like slapsticky, hilarious old-fashioned movies.
Yeah.
Weirdly, less the Marx Brothers, although that came into play. And so I'm like, all right, well, I gravitated toward that stuff, and it was much appreciated and on constant rotation in the house. So my parents were both. My dad was more of like a cut up, and my mom was funny too, but more of a like great crowd. I
Yeah.
don't mean to like diminish how funny she was. She was, but she wasn't like the one who was like, listen, she was a little quiet's not the word,
Yeah.
uh, but anyway, they totally encouraged me to be funny. I was like,
Hmm.
and also they were. I think where it all came together was that they were big, especially my mom was a huge Broadway nerd. And so I think she didn't really understand stand up,
Yeah.
but I made the good choice of doing like all the high school musicals. And so that was acceptable and that was encouraged.
Mm.
Uh, so, you know,
So Lynn, I'm like sitting here right now and I could talk to you for a long time. You are so interesting as a person, just like your thoughts and where you go with things. And I'm going to tell you, it's just been great having you on the show. Thank you so much for coming on
such a
and joining
pleasure.
us.
If
Yeah.
nothing else, I love your hair. I mean, I'll tell you this. I've had so many different like hair
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
experiments, and my parents for all their kind of uh like we were like an artsy creative family, so
Yeah.
pretty sort of not as much as not like there was paint everywhere in the house, like not like that, but still like creative artsy. They
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
expect me
Yeah.
to go into to be an engineer or whatever. And I've still to this day, when I was when I was in my early 20s, um in the early 2000s. No, when I was in my early 20s, I dyed. I like put a few pink streaks in my hair, like you have. You're purple,
Yeah.
but I had
Yeah.
pink,
Purple.
and this was in, like the early 90s,
Hmm.
and it was a little bit. Now it's like not that unusual. Not to say you're not completely original and all that stuff, but
I'm
it's not that
not.
unusual. But I put a couple of pink streaks in my hair, and my parents freaked out. To this day, it was actually like to the point that it was out of character for them.
Yeah.
And to this day, I haven't figured it out. I don't know why that was. They even like lied. I'm not kidding. This is a whole other story. But we were going. I was already like an adult, and they were traveling to the Basque country in Spain, and I decided to go with them. And I would have rather. I was like 23. I would have rather gone with my husband, but I didn't have one. So, and they made up a story about how it was dangerous. Well, they told me a story. I didn't know it was made up, but it was like dangerous to travel to the Basque country and stand out in any way. And they told me they even like cited this like linguist activist friend of theirs. My dad was a linguist, and they're like, Carlos says that you should really tone it down. And I was like, oh, for God's sake. So I was like, okay, fine. And so I re-dyed my hair. And then like years later, I found out that they completely made that up, which is it's insane. And my parents were that eccentric. Like this is such a
Yeah.
departure. Like and so they could not handle like a few pink streaks. Couldn't
Yeah.
handle it.
Yeah.
And and like it was still like a sore spot. Like when I was in my 30s, 40s, 50s, my mom, oh, the pink hair. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Of
So
all the things to worry about.
and
I think I would have been okay with the pink hair today. It'd be like, great, no problem.
I have a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old. Both of them have been through more hair colors I have
Yeah.
at age 56. Starting when they were like 7, and
Yeah.
they were like, "Can I dye my hair?" I was like, "Okay." Like what? Just anyway. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
sorry to take up more time, but like
No, I
haven't told that story
definitely
in a
was
while.
ready for that.
Got
And I think
excited.
our listeners will enjoy it. So thank you so much again, Lynn. We'll leave them laughing. Okay.
Hope so. Thank you.
What a truly fun and honestly life giving conversation. Huge thanks to Lynn for joining us with such brilliance, warmth, and laughter, and for reminding us that humor is not something extra we turn to when life settles down. It's something that helps us get through when life doesn't. I'm still smiling about the moment when we decided what we'll need for 2026. A go bag, some non perishable snacks, friends in other countries, and a very, very good sense of humor. And underneath the laughter was something really powerful. Before you go, I want to point out a few fun things that I've put into the show notes. One, I put in Lynn's list of comedians she's loving right now. So, in case you want to check them out, there's Bob the Drag Queen, Cameron Esposito, and many others. We also included the link to Lynn's favorite pandemic moment, the homemade all star recreation of The Princess Bride, filmed by comedians and actors in their backyards during COVID. It's joyful, it's ridiculous, it's creative, and honestly, it's such a good reminder what we as humans can do when things feel hard. Here are 3 takeaways I'm carrying with me from this conversation. 1, humor builds trust, and trust is at the heart of leadership. 2, you don't have to be funny to use humor with intention. And 3, laughter isn't a distraction. Sometimes it's power, resistance, and repair. And if this episode made you smile or feel a little lighter, I'd love it if you'd share it with someone who could use a little laugh right now. As always, thank you for listening, for sharing these conversations with me, and for being part of the community that values courage, creativity, and heart-centered leadership. Coming up next on Girl Take the Lead, I'll be joined by Catherine Spears, a neurosomatic practitioner who works with women whose nervous system are carrying a lot. Senior leaders, founders, change makers, disruptors, women holding big careers, big visions, and big responsibilities, often from a place of perpetual tension that society has somehow normalized. Together, we'll talk about regulation, resilience, and what it really looks like to lead without living in constant survival mode. Until then, take care of yourself, find your people, and if you can, leave them laughing. Talk to you soon. Bye.